Good morning. My name is Aanya Achrekar and today I am going to tell you a tale. I remember in vivid clarity the first time I saw a snake. Well, it certainly wasn't the first time I had seen one. This time, however, it was a much closer encounter. I may have been 4 or maybe even 5 years old at the time. It had been a sweltering summer and my grandparents' house was nestled in the foothills of the mountain ranges of the Western Ghats, a place well known for its oppressive humidity. I lay on my grandfather's cot that afternoon, staring at the roof, and suddenly I heard one of the tiles of the Kaularu roof squeak, and I turned my head to the side to see a tiny green snake staring right back at me. I reacted with a piercing screech, loud enough to wake my sleeping grandparents up. After all, I was only 4 years old. My grandfather came rushing into the room and, seeing what I was afraid of, immediately started laughing. Now I was scared for my life and confused. He told me not to worry. That tiny green snake was just a tree snake and it wouldn't have hurt me. He then, with the help of a stick, brought the terrified chap off the roof and took it out into our courtyard. I followed him outside, a horrible decision on my part, because the moment I did, he asked me if I would like to touch the snake. After a lot of urging and some promises of candy, I went to pet it. It remained docile to my surprise, even going as far as to bend its tiny little head under my equally tiny fingers. The first time I saw a snake was also the first time I fell in love with the animal kingdom. And I fell in love with it over and over again in the span of the next few years. By the time I was 6, I could recognize a number of birds by their calls alone. By the time I was 7, I was sleeping in the canopies of cashew trees. By the time I was 8, I had walked into my room to see a snake just casually lounging on my clothing stand. And I only felt confused because why would a snake be on my clothing stand? And so it went on. As a child, I was lucky to be raised on both the epics of Indian mythology and also on the stories of Jim Corbett, Kenneth Anderson and Rudyard Kipling. Childhood was great, but when I was 11, I suddenly developed the urge to connect with the social world. My thirst for acceptance and friendship led me to neglect everything I had once loved. And then all I cared about was sparkly pink tops, nail polish, and an endless stream of gossip. I became a people pleaser. I now scoffed at loving nature, playing with bugs, everything I had once loved, believing it to be a child's fantasies. The summer at the end of 6th grade, when I went back to my grandparents' house, I was a little less wild. And who knew that after a year spent turning my back on myself, my home away from home had also turned its back on me. I tried climbing a cashew tree, but I could not find a comfortable spot. I feared walking alone in the dark, afraid that something would hurt me. I was so engrossed in people pleasing that I failed to notice anything magical around me. My 6th encounter with a snake was like a bucket of cold water splashed all over me. I was walking by my farmhouse well when I heard the bricks of the well grind against each other. It was the ghanas, or a Russell's viper. This snake shares the coloring of a tiger and has diamond-like patterns all over its body. Its venom kills by slowly clotting the blood, making your blood pressure drop, and its fangs are one of the largest in the kingdom of snakes. It was staring at me through the bricks of the walls of the well. And for the first time since I was 4, I screamed and then I ran. The jungle has a way of punishing you for your mistakes, a way of making you feel so insignificant and unimportant. It makes you feel like you're a very tiny part of its large system. I should not have been afraid of that snake. But for the first time in 7 years, I was petrified. And that led me to think, was I no longer part of that system? And then I understood why. I had spent a full year, which at that time seemed so long to me, and I had spent it in constant peer pressure and anxiety. I had gossiped behind the backs of my friends. I had joined in when my friend circle teased others for being nerdy, knowing full well that I respected those so-called nerds more than I did my own friends. These thoughts kept me awake that night. So for the first time that year, I forced myself to walk to the washroom alone in the dark. And I cannot to this day explain why I cried that night. But I remember feeling an odd sense of accomplishment at the fact that I was able to walk in the dark at all. At the start of 7th grade, I went back to school with my waist-length hair cut up right to my ears. To me, the cutting of that hair symbolized the removal of that part of me that only lived for other people's opinions. That part of myself that could have grown up to be a truly hateful person. This summer, at the end of 7th grade, when I went back to my grandparents' cottage, there was a thunderstorm on the first night. I sat in the veranda all night, just watching the sky crack open. And when people asked me if I was afraid, I just laughed. Why would I be afraid? Which in my 7th grade lingo meant I was afraid. I was petrified. But after I got over that fear, it was amazing. I saw the lightning illuminate the mountains, giving me an eerie glimpse of the village and the forest. The jungle does indeed have a way of making you feel so insignificant. But it also makes you feel powerful, like you're a part of a system, one with unknown, unseen powers. A system that somehow found a girl living in the city of Pune and decided to make her one of its own. One that let her see the jungle's astounding views, let her feel the roll of thunder in her chest. It taught me not to be afraid, that life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. It helped ease my anxieties and give me peace. It taught me that after overcoming fear, you can experience some of the greatest beauties that this world has to offer. That night, during the thunderstorm, the very jungle, its sounds and its smells seemed to seep into my bones and curl up next to my heart, making it its own. The next morning, my heart felt a lot lighter. And yet, as I walked to the grove of that cashew trees, I felt nervous. But when I finally climbed up on one of the branches, my body molded itself perfectly to the bark. The sun streaming through the leaves welcomed me home.